Hello and welcome to the Nano Film Improv Podcast. I'm Dave Heron. This podcast is about my trials and tribulations associated with improv comedy and doing it, performing it, rehearsing it. So this is really a cathartic outpouring of the things that I've learned, the things that I'm struggling with, and an opportunity to share with you and hear from you also some of the things that have worked for you, and equally there'll be some things on this podcast that you have tried that don't work for you. It's all very subjective. My experience level is, well, I've had a few years experience doing improv. I've taught a bit of improv. I've performed with a whole range of exciting and talented improvisers and learnt from sets that have gone well and sets that haven't gone well. And this is all part of an evolution for me as well. So you're very welcome in joining me on this podcast. So this week I wanted to focus on taking control of my own set. It's quite a short podcast, I think, this week, just drawing on a relatively recent experience I had. Now, what I'm specifically referring to here is not just controlling the improv itself in the non-controlling sense, if that makes sense. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. But I'm talking about controlling the full end-to-end set that you have. So from coming on stage, performing, and then ending your set as well. A recent experience that I had was where I was doing a two-person improv scene, which was about 15 to 20 minutes long, with my good friend Lewis Hill. And we experienced a situation where prior to the set, I'd agreed with the tech person that they could end the set as they saw fit. What happened was that person inadvertently cut short our show at what we deemed as probably not the optimum point to ending it. So this was a real learning experience for me where I learned that what I need to do to give the best performance that I can give is to make sure that the beginning, the middle, and the end of the entire set is as I would want it. And devolving that responsibility sometimes means that you're not always going to get exactly what you want as an improviser when you're performing your set. Now, this was a story where we had got a suggestion from the audience about it being about the greatest diver in the world. So we had built up this wonderful story over sort of 10, 12 minutes or so, where there was an instructor, a diving instructor, who'd been instructing a student for diving for many, many years. But the twist in the story was that the diver himself, the instructor, should I say, had never, ever dived off the top board at the swimming pool. And so there was a real lovely storytelling element to it that I thoroughly enjoyed performing on stage. But unfortunately, before the culmination of the story, the real sort of end of the story could take place, we were cut short by the tech. The lights went out. Now, that was slightly unsatisfying for us as improvisers because we knew together, Lewis and I, exactly where this story was going. The audience knew where this story was going as well. But unfortunately, we were cut short. Now, these things do happen, but it was a reminder to me that if I want to give the best show possible, then I need to stipulate how I want that show to go from the start to the very end. And giving that responsibility to other people isn't always the right thing to do, unless, of course, they're experienced themselves. Now, that said, I've had many shows where the tech has ended the show absolutely perfectly, absolutely at the optimum time. So I'm not criticizing that. I'm just saying that actually it was a wonderful reminder to me that if I want to put on the best show possible, then I need to stipulate what's required from the very start to the very end. Now, this isn't the first time, of course, this has happened either. And of course, it's a mix, as I've just said, that you do get some tech guys that are absolutely fabulous and know exactly when to end it. And I've had that myself. Equally, I have had a number of instances where that hasn't always worked out well for me. And it isn't just the ending as well. There's been a few times where I've asked to have a little bit of music or sound effects played when I come on stage. Hopefully that was agreed beforehand, but then I find out that when I step on stage, there is no music as well. So there are little things like that. Again, they don't ruin the show. They're just a tiny little thing that I think, how do I make sure that I can put on the best show possible? Now, if I give that responsibility to other people, then that's suddenly out of my hands. And therefore, I can't blame others for that. I've got to take the responsibility for what's needed. So this was a really, really helpful reminder that if I want to play the best that I can be as an improviser, then I need to make sure that both ends, the start and the end, are tight as well. So this week is just, as I said, a short podcast where I just had a thought about how I can keep control over things a little bit better and not necessarily blaming other people for something not going optimally correct, but wondered whether you had experienced something similar as well. Have you experienced it where you've possibly overrun and the tech person hasn't caught you out? Have you been cut off too early? Or indeed, have you been lucky like me in many instances where a tech person has ended it at exactly the right moment? And there have been many, many instances like that, particularly when I've performed with Gamez and particularly where I've performed with Slapbot as well. So there have been wonderful opportunities to that, but I would be keen to know whether it's worked for you or not. Do you feel comfortable ending your own set, or would you rather give somebody else that responsibility? I'd be very keen to know what your thoughts are on the subject. So thanks very much for listening to the Nano Film Improv podcast, and I'll catch you in the next one.